Okay, I quoted the Screwtape Letters several times in my last teaching. The play, based on the book, will be at Playhouse Square. Paula Christensen told Lana, who told me, April 26th for 2 shows. It's just the one day. So if you would like to see the whole thing, it'll be at Playhouse Square, April 26th for 2 shows. All right, we're going to start with our memory verse, and you'll notice I have 2 sections missing. No worries if you don't know it. You'll just, do what you can, and then jump in when we get to the end of it, okay? So we're going to say it together. Okay, let's go. He has delivered us from the domain of darkness and transferred us to the kingdom of his beloved Son, in whom we have redemption, the forgiveness of sins. Good job. Keep working on it. Keep working on it. Today we're talking about helplessness. The dictionary defines helplessness as the feeling or state of being unable to do anything to help yourself or anyone else. That is something as Americans we love to be helpless. No, we are, pick yourselves up by the bootstraps, people. There's a saying that I believe Pastor Zach used on Sunday, God helps those who help themselves. So that is not helplessness. And we're going to be talking about helplessness today. One of the things Pastor Zach said on Sunday is no matter who you are, life has a way of bringing you to a moment when you can't help yourself. You may know immediately when that moment was in your life. You may be in it now. If not, life has a way of bringing you to a moment when you can't help yourself. You will have that at some point. My theme for today, my title is What Matters When You're Helpless. And we're talking about that in the concept of drowning. Like in the ocean. We are under the sea presently, and we're going to be talking about drowning and thinking about helplessness. And this is my picture of helplessness because when you are drowning, there is nothing left to do. You cannot help yourself. You need someone else to reach in and help you. And that's really what we're talking about in these stories is how the Bible shows us people that are helpless and how God transforms that. So 2 Kings 5, 1 through 14 and Luke 7, 1 through 10 is what we looked at this week. I am going to go through it verse by verse this week, even though it's 24 verses, it fits in our time, so we are going to go through it. So let's start. Naaman, commander of the army of the king of Syria, was a great man with his master and in high favor, because by him the Lord had given victory to Syria. And we can read that and think, wait, the Lord gave him victory to Syria? Syria is a terrible country in terms of how much they follow God, look for God. But God uses people to accomplish his will. People who know they're being used by him and people who don't. And this says God used him and gave victory to Syria. And we see that in some part that had to be in going into Israel. This is not yet where the nation of Israel has been exiled. So David gets the kingdom. King David gets the kingdom, one kingdom. A couple generations later, the kingdom splits into the northern kingdom of Israel and the southern kingdom of Judah. And in the northern kingdom of Israel, there will be no kings that follow God. Every single king is bad. Every single king is bad. And this is one of the kings of Israel that we're talking about. In the kingdom, and they will be exiled in 721 BC. And they will be overtaken by Assyria, which is not Syria. There's a lot of Syrians then. So Assyria will come, they will never come back to the land. That will be the land in the New Testament called Samaria. Because some of the people will stay and intermarry and they're half-breeds and they have an animosity with the kingdom of Judah. The kingdom of Judah will have some good kings, some bad kings. Sometimes they'll find a scroll in the temple and go, what's this? Oh, there's some rules here, we should do them. And they are good for a while and then they forget. And so they have some good and some bad, and they will be overtaken in 586, I think it is, BC. They will return to the land. That's Ezra and Nehemiah. They will get to return to the land. But today we're talking about the northern kingdom of Israel and the king there. Now the Syrians, on one of their raids, had carried off a little girl from the land of Israel, and she worked in the service of Naaman's wife. She said to her mistress, "Would that my Lord were with the prophet who is in Samaria. He would cure him of his leprosy." So Naaman went in and told his Lord. Thus and so spoke the girl from the land of Israel. And the king of Syria said, "Go now, and I will send a letter to the king of Israel." So he went, taking with him 10 talents of silver, 6,000 shekels of gold, and 10 changes of clothing. You think about that little girl. When we're talking about helpless, she was kidnapped. We don't know, does she have any family, how old she is. But she still knows God, and she still knows God can change his helplessness. And so she does say something about it. This 10 talents of silver, 6,000 shekels of gold, and 10 changes of clothing is like $500,000. I did the math earlier, and it's about $500,000, which for me, I'm like, $500,000 and 10 changes of clothes. Like, with $500,000, you could probably buy your own clothes. So I don't know what it was about those clothes. Were they special, or is that, something? But it's about $500,000 and 10 changes of clothes. And he brought the letter to the king of Israel, which read, "When this letter reaches you, know that I have sent to you Naaman my servant, that you may cure him of his leprosy." And when the king of Israel read the letter, he tore his clothes and said, "Am I God to kill and to make alive, that this man sends word to me to cure a man of his leprosy? Only consider and see how he is seeking a quarrel with me." This is someone who was the king of God's people, and he has no confidence. He doesn't have as much confidence in God as the servant girl who had been kidnapped. So the first thing we can see, what matters when you're helpless, confidence in God. Confidence in God. We need to know who God is. We need to trust that he is who he said he is, and we can trust him. And we do that by time in the Bible. We do that by knowing what he's done in the past, by remembering. It was interesting at my table this morning in discussion. People were talking about the things that God had done for them when they were helpless. We need to remember those things. Pastor Zach calls it God's spiritual resume. When you have a resume and you're getting a job, you give it in, and the employer who's interviewing looks at it and says, "This is who this person's been in the past. Should I trust them to do this job?" God has a spiritual resume he's done in your life, in the Bible and personally in your life. You can look at that and know you can trust him for the helpless situation you're in now, or you may be in the future. When you're drowning and you continue to struggle and continue to fight against the person trying to help you, you're going to drown, and they may drown with you. We can't just continue to fight when we are drowning. But when Elisha, the man of God, heard that the king of Israel had torn his clothes, he sent to the king, saying, "Why have you torn your clothes? Let him come now to me, that he may know that there is a prophet in Israel." So Naaman came with his horses and chariots and stood at the door of Elisha's house. And Elisha sent a messenger to him, saying, "Go and wash in the Jordan 7 times, and your flesh shall be restored, and you shall be clean." Elisha does this in an unusual way. This was a powerful man coming with lots of pomp and circumstance. And he goes, yeah, just go tell him, do this. He doesn't even get up from whatever he's doing. And that makes Naaman angry. But Naaman was angry and went away, saying, "Behold, I thought that he would surely come out to me and stand and call upon the name of the Lord his God, and wave his hand over the place and cure the leper. Are not Abana and Pharpar, the rivers of Damascus, better than all the waters of Israel? Could I not wash in them and be clean?" So he turned and went away in a rage. Elisha gives him a seemingly simple thing to do. 7 times dip in the Jordan. And he goes, yeah, the Jordan's not that, And I've seen the Jordan, and I agree. I wouldn't want to, but it seems easy. Go in 7 times. But Naaman isn't willing yet to have humility before God. What matters when you're helpless is humility before God, to understand I cannot do this myself. And there will be things that God says, hey, go here, do this, read this, spend time here. We have the choice to say that's not going to help. That's not going to help. I'm not doing it. Or to lean into it and have humility before God and say, you know more than I do. I have an alert on my phone at 8 a.m. and 2 p.m. and it just reminds me to pause. And every time at that, if, I pay attention to the alert, I say a specific prayer. You are God and I am not. Remind me today you are God and I am not. I need to, and that has been so good for me just to lean into that. Just to say that you are God and I am not. You are God and I am not. Because I would like to be God sometimes. I think I know the answers, but that isn't going to help. So we need to have humility before God. We need to stop struggling so that we can be helped in our helplessness. But his servants came near and said to him, "My father, it is a great word the prophet has spoken to you. Will you not do it? Has he actually said to you, 'Wash and be clean'?" So he went down and dipped himself 7 times in the Jordan, according to the word of the man of God. And his flesh was restored, like the flesh of a child, and he was clean. He did what was asked of him. He didn't understand it, and I wonder, did it get better each time? Or when he got in the 7th time, was it still the same? And he was like, see, it's not going to work. Whatever it was, he was obedient to God, and that's the 3rd thing. We need to have obedience to God in the helpless things. There will be things he calls us to that don't seem to make sense. We need to have obedience to God. When you're drowning, the only thing you can do when someone comes to save you is let them. So my analogy breaks down a little bit in that obedience to God as you're doing things, but we can think through that obedience is moving in the same direction as the person who's come to rescue you. Pastor Zach's 3 points for the passage in Luke we're going to look at now talked about the need, the source, and the question. So we have a need, and that there's a source, and the question on our minds is always going to be, do you love me? You are in a helpless state and you think, you don't love me, Lord. How could you let this happen to me? We need to look to the cross when that happened and know that absolutely he loves you so much. Hebrews 12 will say, for the joy set before him, he endured the cross. The only thing Jesus had after the cross that he didn't have before was you and me. He had everything else. He came to earth, and the joy set before him was us. So we can know when we're questioning and we're in a helpless situation, does he care? We can look to the cross and know the answer is yes. After he had finished all of his sayings in the hearing of the people, he entered Capernaum. Now a centurion had a servant who was sick and at the point of death, and who was highly valued by him. Last time I was here, I showed you some pictures of Capernaum. I showed you this one. Now we're going to look the other direction. This is the other direction in the city of Capernaum, and the spaceship is over what is thought to be Peter's house. And you look down in it when you go in it. This is where this story happened with the centurion in Capernaum. When the centurion heard about Jesus, he sent to him elders of the Jews, asking him to come and heal his servant. And when they came to Jesus, they pleaded with him earnestly, saying, he is worthy to have you do this for him. For he loves our nation, and he is the one who built us, our synagogue. So the next thing we can see is money matters. No, it doesn't. It doesn't matter. But somehow the religious people thought money mattered. He's done these things. You should do. Don't we do that sometimes? You know, I'm a good person. I've done all this. How can you do this to me? How can you do this to me? And Jesus went with him. When he was not far from the house, the centurion sent friends, saying to him, Lord, do not trouble yourself, for I am not worthy to have you come under my roof. Therefore I did not presume to come to you. But say the word and let my servant be healed. For I too am a man set under authority, with soldiers under me, and I say to one, go, and he goes, and to another, come, and he comes, and to my servant, do this, and he does it. So the next thing we can see is what matters is power. No, power doesn't matter. But he understands that his power isn't going to get it done. He's appealing to God's power, and he does believe that can get it done. When Jesus heard these things, he marveled at him, and turning to the crowd that followed him, said, I tell you, not even in Israel have I found such faith. And when those who had been sent returned to the house, they found the servant well. Jesus heals him. There's only 2 times in the Gospels Jesus is said to marvel. One is at the unbelief of the Jews in Mark, I think it's Mark, and the other time is here at a Gentile. And he marvels at this Gentile's faith, who really probably doesn't know a whole lot. but he is willing to say, I trust you. And Jesus does heal him. So what matters when you're helpless is confidence in God, humility before God, and obedience to God. Because no matter who you are, life has a way of bringing you to a moment when you can't help yourself. And we see those stories, and we know that, but those stories work out. And we know, our story doesn't always work out. What's up with that? Well, I want to spend time looking at a story that doesn't work out in the way we think. But it happened like a long time ago. And so we can see some of the things that God has done. By looking at this picture, who knows who these guys are? Okay, if I say Elizabeth Elliot, who knows who these guys are? Okay. This is, I'm going to tell you the story if you don't know, so no worries. This happened in 1956, so there's no reason why you should know the story. In the middle is Jim Elliot. To his right is Nate Saint. The other guys are Ed, Pete, and Roger. And they were 5 guys between 26 and 28, and they decided they were going to go to a village in Ecuador, in the jungles of Ecuador, and reach a tribe that was known to be incredibly violent. Incredibly violent, they killed, they fought, and they said, we're going to go reach them for Jesus. So they spend some time dropping things down before they land. There are pictures of them getting to know the tribe. And they had decided, they did have guns, so they could kill animals and things, but they had decided they would not use the guns if they were attacked by these people, because they said, we're ready for heaven, they're not. So January 8th, 2 of the wives are waiting at the radio to talk to them, and the call never comes. So they send out a plane, and they see 4 of them dead on the beach, and they don't ever find the other one. They think his body floated away. So they were speared and killed by the Waodani tribe. So that's a pretty hopeless situation for them and for the 5 women. Jim Elliot will write in his journal about 6 or 7 years before, he is no fool who gives what he cannot keep to gain that which he cannot lose. Do you hear in that a confidence in God, a humility before God, and an obedience to God? To say we're not going to use our guns because they're not ready for heaven and we are. That's an incredible faith. That's an incredible faith. These are the 5 widows. This is a little bit after because, okay, on the right is Marge Saint. So that's Nate Saint's widow, and she's holding Steve. And the tall one next to her is Elizabeth Elliot, and she's holding Valerie. And Valerie was 10 months old when her father was killed. A little while later, Nate Saint's sister Rachel and Elizabeth Elliot will go to live with the Waodani tribe for several years. She takes Valerie. And so she lives with them for a while. The picture at the top is Steve Saint, the little boy that was being held, and his sister getting baptized. And the 2 men baptizing them are men that participated in the killings. And they know this. The woman at the bottom is Rachel Saint, the sister. She had been there. She stayed there a very long time. So this is her with the tribe. This picture on the left is Steve Saint grown up. He would take his family and live with the tribe when he became an adult. And that picture on the right, in both pictures is Minkaye, and on the right is Marge Saint. This is the widow of Nate Saint. And so the Waodani did not have a real written language like we think of it, so a lot of what they did was orally. So they would recount the things they had done. So they would have recounted to each other these killings, and they would have known who did what because of how they did things. So one night around a fire, Steve asks, tell me the story. So he tells the story, and he finds out Minkaye is who killed his father. And so that doesn't change anything for him. By this time, he loves Minkaye. They call him Grandfather Minkaye. So when he comes to the United States, he goes on a Stephen Curtis Chapman tour, and Minkaye and Steve Saint would come out and talk and kind of tell the story. The USA Today reporter said, I get that you forgive him. You know, that's what the Bible says. You have to do that. I don't get that you love him. How much do you think an article written by that reporter spoke to people? Hundreds of people became missionaries because of this story. I had a lady this morning come up and say, I went on 2 mission trips to Ecuador when I heard the story. So that helpless situation, they don't stay in it. They have the humility, they have the obedience, they have the confidence, and they lean into, okay, Lord, I don't get this. I don't get this. But I'm going to lean into it. And incredible things happened because of it. Elizabeth Elliot would say, God never withholds from his child that which his love and wisdom call good. God's refusals are always merciful. Severe mercies at times, but mercies all the same. God never denies us our heart's desire except to give us something better. She was 28 years old when she became a widow and had a 10-month-old daughter. And this is one of the things that she would write in her book later. She called her book The Shadow of the Almighty because she was utterly convinced that the refuge of the people of God is not a refuge from suffering and death, but a refuge from final and ultimate defeat. Those 5 widows had a choice when this thing happened to them. They were helpless. They had a choice whether to lean into it and have a refuge in God or have ultimate defeat. That title comes from Psalm 91:1. He who dwells in the shelter of the Most High will abide in the shadow of the Almighty. We're going to talk a little bit about dwells tomorrow when we are talking about goodness and what does goodness look like. We'll come back to another word that is similar to dwells. Isn't that what we want? To dwell in the shelter of the Most High? We need to be ready when the storms come. We need to have confidence, humility, obedience, all those things in place so that we can go through the storms well. We are going to listen to a song today, and it's by Sons of Sunday, which isn't a real group per se. All these guys have Grammys, Dove Awards, and they've written songs together, but they all do different things. Brandon Lake is at the top, and that's how I came to know who they are. But they all do different things. On your paper where the words to the song are, I've written who is singing each verse. I don't know if this is autobiographical. Is this their story? Oh, no, we don't know. Is this their story or is this not? We don't know. We don't know. So we are going to listen to this song. In our helplessness, we need to look up. We need to look for Jesus the Redeemer. I hope as you were going through that and hearing their stories, you thought about the times you were helpless. You thought about how you had done it. Maybe it wasn't what you would like. Well, you have the opportunity for the next time you're helpless. Unfortunately, there will be more. To think through what you do next. Elizabeth Elliot would say, restlessness and impatience change nothing except our peace and joy. Peace does not dwell in outward things, but in the heart prepared to wait trustfully and quietly on him who has all things safely in his hands. We can fight. We can not look to Jesus our Redeemer when we're helpless. We will miss out on the peace and joy he offers when we have confidence in him, humility before him, and obedience to him. We finish with the blessing, and then you will be free to discuss. Know that by the goodness of God, you were born into this world. By the grace of God, you have been kept all the day long, even until this very hour. And by the love of God fully revealed in the face of Jesus Christ, you have been redeemed. Live in light of that redemption. Thank you.